Commander Eric Mitchell stood on the observation deck, watching the vast expanse of stars. Earth was once again being mocked by alien representatives. The Vrol diplomat, with his blue-tinted skin and 6 eyes, barely contained his amusement as he examined Earth's latest spaceship design. "Fascinating attempt," the diplomat said, the translation device not hiding his condescending tone. "Your species continues to entertain us with these innovations." Eric's jaw tightened, but he maintained his professional composure. This was the 3rd meeting this month where advanced species had treated humans like amusing children. The Vrol Confederation had mastered 5th-dimensional technology centuries ago, while humans still struggled with basic warp drives. "Our engineers believe this design improves efficiency by 28%, Eric explained, pointing to the engine schematic. The Vrol diplomat made a sound that translated as laughter. "How charming. We abandoned similar designs during our medieval period." Across the room, Dr. Lisa Wells was experiencing similar humiliation. Her 15 years of research on quantum propulsion was being dismissed by a 3-armed Celtorian scientist as quaint toys. Lisa's face remained neutral, but Eric could see the anger in her eyes. "Perhaps in another century, your species might grasp basic dimensional physics," the Celtorian said, patting Lisa's shoulder with a patronizing gesture. Later that day, Eric found Lisa in the cafeteria of the North American Space Command headquarters. She stabbed at her food with unusual force. "One day," she muttered, "they'll stop laughing." Eric nodded. "Did you get the clearance?" Lisa glanced around before lowering her voice. "Yes, I leave for Mars tomorrow. Operation Tesseract needs my input on the final calculations." The secret project beneath Olympus Mons was humanity's best-kept secret. While aliens mocked their public technology, humans had been working on something revolutionary away from prying eyes. The next morning, Eric received encrypted coordinates for an emergency meeting. He found Admiral Susan Powell waiting in a secure room. "The Vrol have moved their fleet closer to Proxima Centauri," she said without preamble. "They claim it's a routine patrol, but our intelligence suggests otherwise." Eric studied the holographic display showing alien ship movements. "They're positioning for something big. We need to accelerate the timeline," Susan said. "Operation Tesseract can't wait any longer." "But the 7th-dimensional drive hasn't been fully tested," Eric protested. "Dr. Foster reported quantum instabilities just last week." Susan's expression hardened. "We're out of options. The Vrol ambassador has requested a special audience with Earth's leaders next month. Intelligence believes it's an ultimatum, not a diplomatic overture." Eric thought of the secret facility on Mars, where humanity's true technological advancement remained hidden. For decades, Earth had presented a carefully crafted image of technological inferiority, while secretly developing something that would change the galactic power balance forever. "Contact Dr. Wells and the Mars team," Eric finally said. "Tell them we're implementing Protocol Omega." Susan nodded grimly. "The U.S. Defiance will be ready for its dimensional drive in 14 days. As Eric left the meeting, his communication device beeped with a message from Lisa. "Breakthrough achieved. 7th-dimensional matrix stable. Mockery ends soon." That night, Eric stood at his apartment window, looking at the stars where alien civilizations continued their daily routines, unaware that the cosmic hierarchy they took for granted was about to be upended. Humanity had endured centuries of being the galactic joke. But as the old Earth saying went, "Those who laugh last, laugh best." And humanity's laughter was about to echo across dimensions. Dr. Alan Foster rubbed his tired eyes as he stared at the complex equations floating in the holographic display. The blue glow illuminated his small office beneath the Martian surface. Outside, dust storms raged across the red planet. But here, 80 meters underground, a team of Earth's brightest minds worked in secret. "It shouldn't be possible," Alan whispered to Karen Bailey, his research partner for the past 7 years. "These equations break everything we thought we knew about physics." Karen nodded, her expression a mixture of excitement and disbelief. Yet the math checks out. Every simulation confirms it. The holographic display showed a theoretical framework for a vessel capable of existing in 7 dimensions simultaneously. Normal ships operated in 3 or 4 dimensions at most. The Vrol, who constantly mocked humanity, had mastered 5. But 7 was unprecedented. "We stumbled onto this by accident," Alan said, thinking back to their original mission studying quantum fluctuations in the Kuiper belt. No one was even looking for this. Karen manipulated the display, zooming in on a particular set of calculations. The dimensional folding occurs here, allowing the ship to exist partially outside normal spacetime, which means weapons designed to work in standard dimensions would be useless, Karen finished. They simply couldn't fully interact with our vessel. The door slid open, and Admiral John Patterson entered. His uniform was crisp despite the 30-hour flight from Earth. Both scientists stood immediately. At ease, Patterson said, "Show me what you found." For the next hour, Alan and Karen explained their discovery. The Admiral asked pointed questions that revealed he understood more about quantum physics than most military leaders. When they finished, Patterson was silent for a long moment. "You realize what this means," he finally said. "This isn't just a breakthrough in propulsion. This is a complete shift in warfare, diplomacy, and our place in the galaxy." Elen nodded. "If we can build it." "We will build it," Patterson stated firmly. "I'm classifying everything about this project at the highest level. Your funding is tripled, effective immediately. I want a prototype design within 6 months." After the Admiral left, Alan slumped in his chair. "No pressure." Karen laughed nervously. "Just redefine physics and build an impossible ship. Typical Tuesday." They worked through the night, refining their calculations. The mathematics suggested a vessel that could phase through different dimensional planes, effectively choosing which laws of physics apply to it at any given moment. 3 weeks later, the first material tests began. Alan watched as the small test object, no bigger than his hand, flickered between visible reality and something else. The instruments recorded its presence, but human eyes couldn't always perceive it. "We're seeing only its 3-dimensional shadow," Karen explained to the observing engineers. "The object itself exists partly in dimensions we can't perceive." Progress moved faster than anyone expected. By month 4, they had developed materials that could maintain structural integrity across dimensional shifts. The quantum processors necessary to calculate the ship's position across all 7 dimensions filled an entire room, but the engineering team promised to miniaturize them. Alan often worked until exhaustion, sleeping on the cot in his lab. One night, he woke to find Karen still working, her face illuminated by data screens. "We're really doing this," she said without looking up. "Humans are about to leapfrog past all the civilizations that laughed at us." Alan thought about the Vrul ambassador who had once patted him on the head like a child during an interstellar conference. They won't be laughing much longer. Outside their lab, in a newly constructed hangar, the framework for humanity's impossible vessel was already taking shape, its outline hinting at a design unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The orbital shipyard around Neptune remained invisible to conventional sensors. Chief Engineer Diane Harper floated in zero gravity, inspecting the growing framework of humanity's secret weapon. Workers moved silently in their specialized suits, assembling pieces that seemed to flicker in and out of visibility. "How's the quantum entanglement holding up in Section 12? Diane asked through her comm system. Her assistant, Greg Wilson, checked his datapad. "Stable at 97%, which is better than yesterday." Diane nodded with satisfaction. The construction of humanity's first 7th-dimensional vessel was proceeding faster than expected. The workers had taken to calling the ship the Punchline, a bitter joke referring to humanity's position as the butt of cosmic jokes for centuries. "I like the name," Diane had told them when she first heard it, "because when this ship is finished, no one will be laughing at us anymore." The vessel looked strange, even by advanced spacecraft standards. Parts of its hull existed partially out of phase with normal reality, giving it a shimmering, ghostly appearance. Sometimes, sections would seem to disappear entirely, only to reappear moments later. The consciousness-responsive materials are giving us trouble in the command center, Greg reported. They keep responding to random thoughts from the installation team. Diane sighed. Tell the team to wear the psi dampeners I designed. The materials need to bond with the ship's eye, not with every passing thought of the workers. The technology incorporated into the punchline would have been deemed theoretical nonsense by most of humanity's scientific community just years earlier. Materials that responded to conscious thought, engines that manipulated probability itself, and a core that partially existed outside normal space-time. From her position above the main construction area, Diane could see the massive probability engines being installed. Unlike conventional drives that pushed against space, these engines calculated and selected favorable probability outcomes from infinite possibilities across multiple dimensions. A small shuttle approached the shipyard, following the carefully scrambled flight path designed to confuse any watching eyes. Captain Peter Reynolds had arrived to inspect what would soon be his command. "Welcome to the future of humanity, Captain," Diane said as Peter floated through the airlock to join her. Peter was a serious man with more combat experience than anyone in Earth's fleet. He had fought in 3 skirmishes against alien pirates and had even faced a Vrol scout ship once. That encounter had ended with his vessel nearly destroyed and his crew barely escaping with their lives. "Will it actually work?" he asked without preamble, his eyes fixed on the partially visible ship. "The theory is sound," Diane replied. "The simulations are promising, but until we activate the dimensional drive for the first time," she shrugged, "we're in uncharted territory." Peter nodded, understanding the uncertainty. "When will she be ready for a test run?" 6 weeks if nothing goes wrong. The probability core needs careful calibration. One miscalculation could scatter the ship across multiple dimensions. They floated in silence, watching as workers installed a section of hull that seemed to bend light around it. For a moment, the stars behind it appeared to shift position. "The Vrol have been building up forces near Proxima Centauri," Peter said quietly. "Intelligence believes they're planning something big, possibly an invasion." Diane felt her stomach tighten. "We might not have 6 weeks. That's why I'm here. Admiral Patterson wants to know if we can accelerate construction." She considered the risks. Rushing the final phases could be catastrophic, but waiting too long might mean there would be no Earth to save. "We can try for 4 weeks, but I'll need more workers and resources." Peter nodded. "You'll have them by tomorrow." As they continued their inspection, neither spoke about the enormous gamble humanity was taking. If the punchline failed, Earth would be defenseless against the Vrol. But if it worked, the entire balance of power in the galaxy would shift in an instant. Diane watched as a section of the ship briefly phased completely out of visible reality before returning. "Soon," she whispered, "very soon." The emergency sirens blared throughout Proxima Station. Red lights flashed in every corridor as colonists rushed to evacuation points. Communications Officer Olivia Grant worked frantically at her console, routing distress calls and coordinating the evacuation of Earth's oldest off-world colony. "This is Proxima Station to all civilian vessels," she broadcast. "Proceed to emergency shelters or evacuation ships immediately." This is not a drill. Through the large observation window, she could see them. The Vrol battle fleet had appeared without warning. 7 massive warships and numerous smaller vessels had taken position around Proxima Centauri, their distinctive crescent shapes blocking the light from the red dwarf star. Colony Administrator Frank Howard burst into the communications center, his face pale. "How many ships have we gotten away?" 11 transports so far, Olivia replied, checking her screens. "About 40% of the population. We need at least 2 more hours to evacuate everyone." Frank shook his head grimly. "We don't have 2 hours. The Vrol ambassador is demanding to speak with colony leadership now." On the main screen, the face of Grand Executor Jenner appeared. His gray-green skin and multiple eye stalks made his expressions difficult for humans to read, but the tone of his translator came through clearly smug satisfaction. Representatives of Earth, the Vrol leader began. Your presence in this star system has been tolerated as an amusing experiment. However, your species has outgrown its entertainment value. Frank stepped forward. We have lived peacefully in this system for 90 years. We have respected all galactic treaties and... Silence. Jenner interrupted. The Vrol Confederation requires this system for expansion. You have 2 Earth hours to surrender the colony and all its technology. Those who wish to leave may do so in that time frame. After that, we will consider any remaining humans as accepting Vrol authority. Before Frank could respond, the transmission cut off. The entire communications team stared in shock. They can't just take our colony, someone whispered. They can, and they will, Frank replied. Earth Defense Forces are at least 8 days away at maximum speed. We have no choice but to evacuate everyone. Olivia returned to coordinating the evacuation ships, trying to remain calm as panic spread throughout the colony. Families were separated, belongings abandoned, as people rushed to the spaceports. 3 more transport ships managed to depart, carrying hundreds of colonists to safety, when Olivia's secure channel beeped. The message was heavily encrypted, using codes she had never seen before. It took her system nearly a minute to decode it. The message was brief. Punchline deploying. Maintain distance of 2 AU minimum from Proximub. Olivia stared at the words, not understanding their meaning at first. Then she remembered rumors she had heard during her last leave on Earth. Whispers about a secret project, something that would change humanity's standing in the galaxy. Administrator, she called to Frank. We just received a priority message from Earth Command. They're ordering all evacuation ships to move beyond 2 AU from the planet. Frank looked confused. That will take them off the main escape routes. Why would they? I don't know, sir, but the authentication codes are at the highest level I've ever seen. After a moment of consideration, Frank nodded. Redirect all ships. Tell them to move to the designated coordinates immediately. As Olivia relayed the new orders, she noticed something strange on her long-range sensors. The space between the Vrol fleet and Proxima seemed to ripple, like heat waves above hot pavement. Sir, she called, pointing to her screen. Something's happening. The ripples intensified, and for a brief moment, space itself seemed to fold inward. Then, without warning or typical arrival signatures, a ship appeared, unlike any vessel Olivia had ever seen. Parts of it seemed transparent, other sections bent light around them, and some areas appeared to exist in multiple places simultaneously. On her emergency channel, a transmission came through. This is Captain Peter Reynolds of Earth Vessel, punchline. We're engaging the Vrol fleet. Stand by. The Vrol communication channels erupted with confused chatter. Their sensors seemed unable to properly track or identify the human ship that had impossibly appeared in their midst. Olivia watched breathlessly. Whatever was about to happen would determine the fate of not just this colony, but possibly all of humanity. The punchline appeared without conventional arrival signatures. To ordinary sensors, it seemed to fold into existence like a piece of paper unfolding from a higher dimension. The vessel shimmered with an otherworldly light, parts of its structure seemingly transparent while others reflected impossible colors. On the bridge of the Vrol flagship, Supreme Commander Kraziel stared at the readings in disbelief. What is this? He demanded of his science officer. How did they approach without detection? Unknown, Commander. The science officer replied, his eye stalks twitching in confusion. Our sensors cannot properly measure the vessel. It appears to exist in multiple spatial planes simultaneously. Kraziel hissed in frustration. A human trick. Their technology is primitive. Hail this intruder. Aboard the punchline, Captain Peter Reynolds sat in the command chair, feeling the strange sensation of the ship's consciousness-responsive systems connecting with his mind. The neural interface fed him information about the vessel's status across all 7 dimensions it partially occupied. "They're hailing us, Captain," reported Lieutenant Sam Martinez from the communications station. On screen, Peter ordered, straightening in his chair. The face of the Vrol commander appeared, his multiple eyes narrowing in contempt. "Identify yourselves, humans. Your interruption of our annexation is unwelcome." Peter met the alien's gaze steadily. "This is Captain Reynolds of the Earth vessel Punchline. You are in violation of sovereign human territory. This is your only warning. Withdraw from human space immediately." Krasiel made a sound that the translator interpreted as laughter. "You send one ship against our fleet. Your species' arrogance is as amusing as your primitive technology." The laughter from the Vrol command deck echoed through the transmission. Peter glanced at his executive officer, Commander Natalie Flores, who nodded subtly. "Very well," Peter said calmly. "You've made your choice." He cut the transmission and turned to his dimensional drive operator, Lieutenant Jack Harris. "Activate the dimensional drive. Take us to Configuration Delta." Jack's fingers moved across controls that responded as much to his thoughts as to his touch. "Dimensional drive activating, sir. Shifting to Configuration Delta." The ship hummed with power as its systems began to manipulate the very fabric of reality. The Punchline didn't just move through space. It began to exist in multiple dimensional planes simultaneously. On the Vrol flagship, alarms blared as their sensors went haywire. "Commander," the science officer cried out, "the human vessel is changing. It's creating overlap regions where our dimensional physics calculations no longer function." "Impossible," Krasiel snarled. "Target all weapons on that ship and fire." The Vrol fleet released a barrage of energy weapons, each beam calculated to destroy any known vessel. But the Punchline existed partially outside the dimensions where those weapons operated. Some beams passed harmlessly through sections of the ship, while others bent around it as if repelled by an invisible force. "No damage, Captain," reported Natalie, unable to keep the note of wonder from her voice. "Their weapons cannot fully interact with us while we're in this configuration." Peter nodded, feeling the ship's systems responding to his thoughts through the neural interface. "Take us to Configuration Epsilon. Prepare to activate the dimensional field." The Punchline shimmered, parts of it briefly disappearing from normal vision before reappearing. Around the vessel, space itself began to distort as the ship extended its dimensional manipulation beyond its hull. On the Vrol ships, chaos erupted. Systems failed as the fundamental constants they relied on suddenly changed. Gravity fluctuated. Light moved at different speeds across different sections of their vessels. Time itself seemed to flow inconsistently. "What is happening?" Krasiel demanded, watching in horror as one of his escort ships began to phase partially in and out of visible reality. The science officer stared at his useless instruments, mandibles clicking in fear. "They're altering the dimensional properties of space around us. This technology, it shouldn't exist. No species has mastered manipulation beyond the 6th dimension." Through the viewport, Krasiel watched as reality itself seemed to bend around the human vessel. The laughter had stopped, replaced by the beginning of panic. For the first time in his long career, the Vrol commander felt something he had never expected to feel when confronting humans. Commander Ryan Phillips stood at the weapons station on the Punchline's bridge, but what he controlled could not truly be called weapons in any conventional sense. His fingers hovered over controls that glowed with shifting colors, systems that responded as much to his intentions as to his physical inputs. "Dimensional field at full capacity, Captain," Ryan reported, his voice steady despite the incredible power at his fingertips. "Ready to implement protocol sundering." Captain Reynolds nodded from the command chair. "Proceed, Commander." Ryan activated the sequence. The bridge lights dimmed momentarily as power redirected to the dimensional manipulators. Through the viewports, the stars seemed to bend and twist as the Punchline began to alter the fabric of reality around the Vrol fleet. "Targeting their flagship first," Ryan said, focusing the ship's dimensional field. What happened next defied conventional description. The punchline didn't fire weapons in the traditional sense. Instead, it created a bubble of altered dimensional properties around the Vrol flagship. The massive alien vessel began to phase partially in and out of reality as different sections existed in different dimensional planes simultaneously. On the main screen, they could see the chaos aboard the Vrol ship. Crew members experienced different time flows depending on where they stood. Some areas aged years in seconds, while others froze in temporal stasis. The ship's hull twisted into impossible configurations as parts existed in dimensions with different physical laws. "My God," whispered Lieutenant Martinez from communications, "what are we doing to them?" "We're not destroying them," Ryan explained, carefully monitoring the process. "We're shifting them partially out of our dimensional plane. They still exist, but not entirely in the same reality as us." Captain Reynolds leaned forward. "Extend the field to the remaining vessels." Ryan complied, expanding the dimensional disruption. One by one, the Vrol ships began to experience the same reality-bending effects. Their elegant crescent shapes twisted and folded as if being viewed through a shattered lens. Some ships appeared to stretch into infinity before snapping back to normal size, only to repeat the process again and again. The Vrol attempted to fight back. Energy weapons fired at the punchline, but the beams curved around the ship or passed through it harmlessly, unable to maintain coherence in the shifting dimensional boundaries. "Their flagship is attempting some kind of dimensional stabilization," Ryan reported, noting new readings on his console. "They're trying to match our dimensional shifting." "Increase field intensity," ordered Captain Reynolds. "Take us to Configuration Omega." The punchline systems hummed as they pushed beyond previously tested limits. The ship itself seemed to fade from visible reality before returning with a pulse of energy that rippled outward. This pulse caught the Vrol flagship at the precise moment its engineers attempted their dimensional shift. The alien vessel froze in space, caught between realities. Its surface rippled like water, then began to fold inward upon itself in a manner that hurt the human eye to witness. Then, with a silent flash of light across multiple spectral ranges, the flagship simply vanished. "Target has been removed from our dimensional plane," Ryan announced, checking his readings. "It hasn't been destroyed. It's just elsewhere now." The remaining Vrol vessels, witnessing what happened to their flagship, attempted to flee. But they moved in conventional space, while the punchline operated across dimensions. Within minutes, all 7 major warships had been shifted out of humanity's accessible dimensions, along with most of their support craft. A few smaller vessels managed to escape by jumping to hyperspace before the dimensional field could reach them. When it was over, the space around Proxima Centauri was clear of the Vrol fleet. The only evidence they had ever been, there were strange energy readings that would puzzle scientists for years to come. Ryan finally relaxed his posture, releasing controls that had channeled enough power to reshape reality itself. His hands trembled slightly from the mental strain of directing such forces. "Dimensional systems returning to baseline," he reported. "Field collapsing." Captain Reynolds nodded, then opened a channel to Proxima Station. "This is Captain Reynolds of the Punchline. The threat has been neutralized. Repeat, the Vrol fleet has been removed." There was a long pause before a shaky voice responded. "Understood, Punchline. What did you do to them?" Captain Reynolds exchanged glances with Ryan before answering. "We showed them that humanity is no longer the galaxy's punchline." The news of what happened at Proxima Centauri spread through the galaxy faster than any human vessel could travel. Within days, strange ships began appearing at the edges of the solar system. These weren't warships or battle fleets, but diplomatic vessels carrying representatives from species that had previously ignored humanity or treated them with condescension. Dr. Margaret Wilson, now head of the newly formed Dimensional Sciences Division, stood in Earth's Grand Reception Hall as aliens from 17 different spacefaring civilizations gathered for an unprecedented summit. Some species had never before sent representatives to Earth, considering humans too primitive for meaningful dialogue. "They're afraid of us now," whispered Admiral Patterson as he joined Margaret at the observation balcony overlooking the gathering. Fear isn't the foundation for lasting peace. Margaret nodded. Not fear alone, but respect is a start. The Vrol gave us no choice. Have your teams determined where exactly we sent them? Patterson asked quietly. A parallel dimensional plane, similar to ours but offset. They exist there now, unable to interact with our reality. Margaret paused. They're alive, just elsewhere. The assembled aliens below represented powers that had dominated galactic politics for millennia. Now they waited nervously for humans to present their terms. The mocking laughter that had followed humanity for centuries was notably absent. Captain Reynolds entered the reception hall alongside the President of the United Earth Government. A path cleared instantly as alien diplomats moved aside, many using translator devices to whisper about the dimensional commander and the reality shifter. After formal introductions, Margaret was called to present humanity's scientific findings and terms for peaceful coexistence. She approached the central podium, feeling the weight of countless alien eyes upon her. Representatives of the galactic community, she began. Humanity has developed seventh-dimensional technology, not to conquer or dominate, but as a response to threats against our sovereignty. We seek peaceful coexistence based on mutual respect. She outlined Earth's terms: recognition of human territorial rights, fair trade agreements, and full membership in the Galactic Council, a position previously denied to developing species like humans. The Zentari ambassador, representing one of the oldest civilizations present, spoke first after her presentation. We find these terms acceptable. The demonstration at Proxima Centauri has made clear that the previous assessment of human capability was inaccurate. One by one, the other representatives agreed to the terms. Some did so grudgingly, others with apparent relief that humanity's requests were not more demanding. As the formal signing ceremony concluded, Margaret noticed Captain Reynolds slipping away from the main gathering. She followed him to a quiet balcony overlooking Earth's nighttime landscape. Not one for celebrations, Captain, she asked. Reynolds shook his head. I keep thinking about what we've started. Dimensional technology changes everything. Warfare, exploration, even our understanding of reality itself. Are you worried we've gone too far? No, he said after a moment. I'm worried we didn't go far enough in understanding the implications. The Vrul are gone, but they're still out there somewhere. And now everyone else knows what we can do. As the delegation prepared to return to their ships, Admiral Patterson joined Reynolds and Margaret on the balcony. They're calling it the Proxima paradigm shift in their communications, he said quietly. The day the primitives revealed themselves as dimensional architects. Reynolds nodded, watching the stars above. We never wanted war or dominance, just respect. In orbit above Earth, the punchline remained on standby, its dimensional systems humming quietly. Engineers were already designing the next generation of vessels based on its technology. Exploration ships that could peek into other dimensional planes, research vessels that could study the very fabric of reality from new perspectives. The irony isn't lost on me, Reynolds said as they watched a diplomatic shuttle rise into the night sky. The punchline delivered the perfect punchline to a cosmic joke. The species everyone laughed at now commands the power to reshape reality itself. Margaret smiled. And yet, all we really wanted was a seat at the table. Well, said Admiral Patterson, they're certainly saving us a seat now. As night deepened over Earth, representatives of thousands of years of human struggle and achievement looked up at the stars, no longer as distant, unreachable points of light, but as neighbors in a community where humanity had finally earned its place.